Good morning, y'all. This is Merge Conflict, Conflict Resolution and Management for Developers. My name is Tracy Hinds. I'm a web engineer at Urban Airship by day. I write Python and JavaScript. A cat herder of organizers in the evenings for PDX Node, which is Portland's local node.js user group. And in my spare time, I'm also curating Cascadia.js 2014. You can find me on GitHub, Twitter, and lurking in the far corners of Freenode on IRC as Hacky-Go-Lucky. First and foremost, I want to say thanks for taking a few minutes and listening, and LXJS for having me. It's a huge blessing. And also a disclaimer. I am not a licensed professional. My undergraduate education was in psychology, which means that I have 4 years' experience trying to diagnose myself with some really bizarre personality disorder. I am trained in crisis counseling, peer mediation, conflict resolution, and I've got experience in both. But this talk is not a substitution for going out and reading or getting training yourself. So way back when Futurama was first debuting, which was 1999, leaders in my high school found themselves at a dead end. There were tons of fights, lots of physical violence going on, and students were pouring into the guidance counselor with some pretty ridiculous arguments, really dumb things. I mean, they're mostly fueled by puberty and raging hormones. So the solution, they decided somehow we were able to get a peer mediation program brought in. Every student in the school was going to be required to take a 10-week training program, and that was 9th grade through graduation. While this sounds pretty extreme, it worked. So you're teaching teenagers to learn how to communicate and communicate effectively about their emotions, which was a pretty powerful thing. The occurrence of fights dropped to 0. And the students started calming each other. We were required to visit and volunteer at the peer mediation classroom once a week for an hour. And as part of that, instead of the guidance counselors or teachers trying to break up these fights, you had a peer, a student of your own age, trying to talk you through exactly what you were dealing with. And when someone's your own age and your own demographic, it's much easier to be able to connect with them. So we haven't been given these tools to facilitate this naturally. It's something that we have to cultivate as adults, or as kids, if we're fortunate enough. So this was a gift given to me by my secondary education. So in this talk, I want to share these skills as they translate in our world, programming. So let's use these skills and make our communities better. We are programmers, but we're also human. And I personally can get pretty fired up myself in debates. I've found this quote poignant. When you hate, you take poison and expect the other person to die. We need to find healthy ways to lift each other up as individuals and as communities. We have amazing talents that we can use for good, but we're getting in our own way by being so venomous to one another. I hope that with these few minutes, I can convince you to take a moment to consider this a worthwhile endeavor. Secondly, I want to share some approaches that we can use as tools to put in our toolboxes to communicate a little more kindly in our programming world. So what is conflict? Conflict gets a bad rap, but it's not. That's kind of unfair because conflict isn't inherently bad. Its reality is that it's just a disagreement or a dispute between parties, and they feel threatened about something that's important to them. It can be an interest, a need, a value. Some experts like to make the distinction between disputes, which are short-term disagreements, and conflicts, which are longer-term, more deeply rooted issues. So lesson number 1 is that we are tinkerers, we are engineers, and we are makers. And there's no doubt we love to fix things. We cannot fix it all. There's conflict resolution, and there's conflict management. Both are useful and help address solvable problems or immovable forces. I'll step into both a little further as we dive into the murky waters of communicating online. So social media-based interactions. They're increasingly important to our existence, the way that we're sharing. And as online communities, we've leveraged these platforms to break down physical location differences and communication barriers. The speed at which both positive, neutral, and negative information is relayed has created a beast that is difficult to wrangle. And when addressing these issues relevant to a coder's bread and butter, it can be quite a dilemma. In an age of digital divide and a lack of accountability through internet anonymity, we have such great power that carries along a dangerous amount of responsibility that many don't recognize. Our words are powerful. In order for us to change the prevailing attitude of the technologies we leverage daily, we need to recognize the importance of healthy conflict resolution. Researchers have studied the effects of conflict on closed-sourced software development. In one example, a study surveyed 40 software development teams and concluded that how people work together and mitigate conflict is more important than individual skills and abilities of the team's members in predicting the software development performance. In staying aware and acting deliberately, we can positively share the tiny worlds that we as programmers have created and invite others in. This is the power of these technologies. I have a personal rule of thumb when it comes to using Twitter, and that's battle-tested and also unfortunate that I had to come up with it in the first place. And that's that I am only allowed to use it for knowledge sharing and encouragement. That's it. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm not saying you should do that as well. But I tend to sit on my tweets for a couple of minutes before I post them, especially if they are remotely emotion-fueled. It's very tempting to use it as a snappy form of response, but I am not a person capable of wielding that power in a constructive manner. So I'll tell you my first story, and this one is about conference organizing. So how in the world do we convey sarcasm in 140 characters? How about silliness? Or a look of worry that you don't even know that is on your face? How far would I be standing from you if I was trying to make this argument in person? What of the inflection in my voice? Nonverbal communication is 2/3 of all communication. I think many of us have had that aha, that where we realize the person we're reaching out to is having an entirely different conversation than the one I'm speaking to. So I'm going to call this person, my friend, Frustrated and Frank. Frustrated and Frank is upset at the treatment of speakers at conferences and those who submit talks. This hardworking individual loves sharing with the community and is happy to put forth the effort, but has lately been feeling reasonably neglected in what seems to be very common sense areas. Unfortunately, the conference I'm organizing was the straw that broke the camel's back. Since this was the last of a long line of grievances our frustrated friend had experienced, they decided to tweet about it instead of reaching out to one of the organizers, while not mentioning our conference by name. Reading between the lines made it clear to me that this was indeed our conference. As someone who takes pride in my work, I was upset, quite possibly more than I needed to be. And I could have taken the opportunity to jump in to assumptions and be very defensive. But that begs the question, how would that alleviate my concerns that I'm running a conference that awesome people will want to attend, or Frustrated and Frank's hopelessness in submitting talks in the future? The first step I took was to reach out privately. Taking this to a space that allows for honest conversation without third parties that have no real investment in your argument can simplify the debate. The other party is willing to, if the other party is willing to engage this way, you're really fortunate. Don't assume this will stay private. It is the internet. Be kind. This is not an opportunity to be disrespectful because you're out of public view. When all was said and done, the problem was simple. Our organizers are really excited and friendly, and when we travel to conferences, we'll encourage people we see doing cool stuff to submit talks. Frustrated and Frank was one of them. The talk was later declined by our committee, and because this person regularly gives talks, they had scheduled the scheduling can be a challenge for them, and they had soft reserved for ours. So the person was, needless to say, very disappointed. Due to a new process I personally had chosen for our submission and selection process, the declines were delayed in being released. Totally my fault. Still, how did I fix this? There's not too much I can do at this point. I've already let them down. So I owned up to the mistake, to the delay, and I apologized profusely. There was no excuse. And now that's been documented, and in future years, organizers are going to stay on top of how we're informing our Cascadian speakers in a timely manner. As a conference like LXJS sets the example, we too as Cascadians care insanely about the experience you're getting when you engage with our community. You should not walk away without a smile, and you should not walk away without a hug or a high five. I'll admit, though, I was very lucky that our new friend was so patient and willing to listen to my perspective. That's an exception to the rule. More often, we don't filter the emotion out of our arguments. We are perceiving to be very rational. Online, we end up in arguments about things and stuff. And then we end up in a tangential, but still very important, argument surrounding tone. And then I get turned in circles and forget how to tie my shoes. But in all seriousness, tone shouldn't be a question. If you violate the expectations of civility your counterpart is counting on, listening's going to come to a halt. That isn't constructive. It is unfortunate. We can't connect even to argue if we're so fired up that the words of the argument can't get through the cloud of frustration blocking listening. So another challenge comes into play as well. Most of us are pretty awful at logical reasoning without the added complication of being human and emotions entering the battlefield. So this is an awesome website. This is, I believe, is your fallacy logic. Let's see, .com. I'll reference it at the end of the presentation. Sorry, but it's pretty incredible, and it's not all the fallacies, but they are a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we're really good at using these tools in more serious conversations. So let's look at a few. We've got the straw man. You misrepresented someone's argument to make it easier to attack. Putting words in somebody's mouth. Ad hominem. You attacked your opponent's character or personal traits in an attempt to undermine their argument. Happens all the time. Personal favorite, the bandwagon. You appealed to popularity or the fact that many people do something as an attempted form of validation. Everyone's doing it. All right, so this time, I'm going to have you guys stand up. It's a test to see if you're paying attention. All right, lots of noise. All right, yeah. You're welcome to stretch if you want. So if I started making broad, gaping statements regarding Angular or Ember right now, would I make your blood pressure boil a little bit, raise up a little bit? How about my preference for callbacks over promises? But bear with me, these are all hypotheticals. I'm not making opinions on any. I don't really use either. Okay, so if in JavaScript you use unnecessary semicolons at the end of your code lines, sit down. Unnecessary. If you don't use a comma first syntax, sit down. Yeah, all right. So, you rare, beautiful birds. This is my personal preference. You all still standing have obviously superior aesthetic in your code. So, thank you. You can take a seat. But really, it's all horrible logic. So in reality, we need to focus on people in our debate, or not focus on people in our debates, and stick to the plan, which is healthy conflict. Remove the pointed you in the fight. So the next story I'm going to tell is about some work that I was doing prior. And that was in crisis counseling training. So I decided a couple years back, after having a number of my friends go through some really hard times, that I needed to find more perspective and help learn more empathy for people that I couldn't really find an understanding for. So I started volunteering at a crisis hotline that was approximately 6 months of training, and that was in-person role-playing regarding taking phone calls for somebody who might be suicidal. We also had to take moderated phone calls of people who were actually calling in, and it could be at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you needed to keep them on the phone. But the power in the training itself was in sharing how you don't matter. Your perspective doesn't matter in these situations, because if somebody's calling into this place, there's no way that you can empathize because they are an individual. You may have gone through a similar circumstance, but it's a dangerous place to go if you try and share that you understand, because you can't mind read. But in terms of conflict and how you can speak to other people, the takeaway I got from this was that I don't understand other people, no matter how much I like to think I do. And pausing when I have that opportunity, stepping back and allowing other people to speak will end up enlightening me when it comes to something that I may not have agreed with. So this is what I carry through my experiences now. The things I have to ask questions for myself. When I come to the table for a discussion, I need to be prepared by having explored my personal agenda and preconceptions. I will project a lot of things on you. What personal needs am I possibly trying to deal with in this argument? What am I expecting or hoping to accomplish by holding this battle, personally and professionally? What selfish agenda do I need to admit to myself to avoid it impacting in the case I'm making? What is it going to take for me to do a better job of keeping my ego in check? Ultimately, we are all consumers of each other's work. Does this make us backseat drivers, armchair quarterbacks? At some point, I really am very likely to use it. I'm pretty invested in what you're doing. If there's a possibility, I'll be using it in the future. Some are so exercised in sharing their opinions that this will happen regardless of whether they could see using it. Successful conflict resolution depends on regulating stress, your emotional awareness, and nonverbal communication. And especially online, that can include actions we take on projects. So first and foremost, we want to understand the conflict. Whether it's a PR or a tweet, this can impact your livelihood, your reputation, or your sanity. Number 2, we want to communicate with the opposition. Reach out. Posting an issue and waiting isn't always ideal. Be kind, be proactive, but don't be a nuisance. Engage. Brainstorm your possible resolutions. Offering up opinions on how wrong something is can be valuable, but it isn't very constructive. Bringing one or more solutions to the table is, and it's possible your soon-to-be friend didn't think of what you're offering. Next, you're going to be choosing the best resolution, ideally, along with your new friend. And you're going to have to cope with any stressful situations and pressure tactics that arise. And of course, you're going to have to rinse and repeat. It happens. New people are going to come into the mix, into the arguments, very likely because you are not isolated, and people will often want more perspective. So merge resolution. The negative effects of unresolved online hostility and attacks and reputational harm are daunting. On the business side, conflict can include lower employee morale, reduction in work quality, lower productivity, loss of employee loyalty, the list goes on. Personally, ongoing or unresolved conflict can result in stress, anxiety, depression, diminished work productivity, social isolation. It's nasty business. So the answer for me comes to focus on me. I can't change you. I can meet an expectation that I'm walking up to the table in a calm place, and I'll collect myself before I'm presenting my argument. If I set a precedent of goodwill and logical arguing, you'll know what to expect from me in the future. You're far less likely to make an assumption of malicious intent or triggering if you know where I come from. Every choice you make in your conversations, you're traversing a fork in the road. Everyone is. It can end up being a perfect storm of awful or a road to resolution. All right, and this is just the list of resources that I used. We've got the website for the fallacy, the logical fallacy poster. And thank you.